Good morning. My name is Scott Carley, and welcome back to the Change Energizers Online Academy. Today we're talking about one of my most popular topics, and that is time management. We call it Focus on What Matters, Commanding Your Weekly Routine. You know, I get so many calls every week from people who are frustrated and overwhelmed, who feel scattered about their priorities and trying to get their work done. One of those was Greg Menudo. Greg has a large manufacturing company out on Long Island in New York. And he called me and said, Scott, I need help. I know that I need to be managing my manufacturing team, but I feel guilty because I also need to be in the lab as a chemist working on new products. And then I think about sales. I've got sales in America, sales overseas. We are dependent on our customers buying our product. I need help. What am I going to do? I get calls like that all the time. Greg was struggling with understanding his priorities and income producing activities. And it was all or nothing. And the reality of it is there's some simple things that you can use to manage your time and your priorities. And we're going to work on those today. So if you're feeling frustrated and overwhelmed and you finished the week, but you've still got so many things that you didn't get done, you're like a lot of other people in life. And it's not altogether your fault. It's learning priorities, and it's constructing habits of creating a weekly routine that can make you successful. So let's dive into it right now. Let's really get to the heart of the matter, and let's talk about time. You know, every one of us get the same amount of time every week. We get 744 hours a month, 168 hours a week. What are we doing with that time? Typically, we have a 40-hour work week, and you need to decide how many hours a week you want to work. Do you want to put in 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week, 60? No way. How many hours a week do you want to work? Once you decide that, we can build a routine around it. I've got a client who is an HR professional. She only wants to work 25 hours a week. And she can do it. She's built up a clientele that satisfies her income needs. She works 25 hours a week so she can spend the rest of the time raising her family. Once they get out of the house, then she can increase the amount of time that she puts into her job. I've got another client who only has to work 8 hours a week. Maybe you've heard about Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week. I've got a client who's working 8 hours. He's built his construction company to the place that though he's available anytime, he only comes into the office for 2 hours, 4 days a week. And in those 2 hours, he's very focused. He takes care of the things that he needs to do, and then he's back out the door doing the things that he wants to do. Yes, it's possible. Maybe not for everybody, but it's possible for him. So what are you going to do with those 40 hours that you decide to week? Well, I like to think that 4 hours a day should be high productivity time, that we're proactive and we're very productive about our work. 2.5 hours a day could be reactive. That's right. Some of the work that we do is reactive and responsive. Maybe we're putting out fires, or we're answering phone calls, or we're responding to issues that are at hand. Hey, if you started looking at your schedule, you may decide that it's reversed, that you are 70% reactive and only 40% proactive. Well, let's fix that. Let's make it correct. So everybody gets the same amount of time, and how you use that time is what's really important. So let's talk about commanding your weekly routine. Okay, so there's a given, an assumption here, and that is that you have a weekly routine, and that weekly routine reflects your priorities. Okay, well, I know you do have a weekly routine. We all have areas of our life that we are predictable. Aristotle said, "You are what you repeatedly do." Excellence is not an event, it's a habit. Mike Murdoch said, "The secret of your future is hidden in your daily routine." And Scott Orrell said, "Haphazard is not a strategy." So you do have a weekly routine. So how do you command that weekly routine? Well, just as I said a minute ago, I want to teach you how to be 70% proactive. 70% that you have a schedule, you have an outline, you have an agenda of what you need to accomplish that week. And we're going to list those primary, secondary, and ongoing responsibilities that you're going to focus on every week. Maybe some things in the morning, some things in the afternoon, maybe some things on certain days of the week when you're in certain parts of the city, but we're going to focus on what matters. And then we're going to leave open 30% of your week so that you can be reactive, responsive. You can put out fires. You can deal with somebody that comes in a spontaneous situation that you need to respond to. So where do we start? We start with what matters most. So that's listing your priorities. One way to think about what is a priority is it income producing? Is this an income producing activity? When I do this, it puts money in my pocket. Another way is, what were you specifically hired to do? If you were specifically hired to do a certain task, fulfill a certain role, then that's what matters most. And then what matters less? Not necessarily what matters least, but what matters less. Some things are high priority, some things are lower priority, some things are lowest priority. You have to decide that. And I'm going to show you a tool to help you work through that. Now, the whole idea is creating a weekly routine and making an appointment with your priorities. Now, I know that you have a weekly routine and you have priorities. More than likely, before you got to work today, you made a stop by Starbucks and you picked up your coffee. Or maybe this evening, you know that you're going to clock out because you have a meeting at the gym and you've got a workout schedule, maybe with a workout partner, and you have a routine. Hey, Monday night football. Hey, I can clear a schedule for Monday night football because it's something that's a priority to me. Or hey, ladies, look, you get your hair done? Every 6 weeks you go in and you get your hair done? That's a priority and you make time for it. That's called having a routine. Your hairdresser knows that you're predictable, and every 6 weeks you're going to be back in to get something touched up or some of that natural coloring to be dealt with. So we all have a weekly routine. We just want to make sure that it reflects our priorities. So when I look at my weekly routine, part of what I do is color code it. And if it's green, that means it's income producing activity for me. So if you look at my calendar, you notice on the left-hand side, on Monday and Tuesday, I have coaching slots. When somebody says, hey, Scott, I want you to personally coach me, then we find a slot on their Monday and Tuesday, and we log that in, and it becomes a weekly routine of a 50-minute phone call. But then I have creative zones. I have creative zones and marketing zones. Wednesday morning and Thursday morning are times that I dedicate specifically to either creative, thinking about new ideas and new products, or on Thursday, I think about marketing and sending out my newsletter and my emails and other marketing material. And then I have some other things that are scattered. You know, I believe in that principle, never eat alone. And so I schedule my lunches with either potential clients or people that I'm mentoring or people that are mentoring me, and we spend those lunch times together. So we want to create a routine. We want to fill that routine up. 70% proactive, 30% reactive. So how's that done? It really is simple. I gave you the secret just a minute ago, and that is make an appointment with your priorities. So how do I do that? So I have a calendar. Now, I've built it on my calendar, but let me show you how to start building it on your calendar. On the left-hand side, you see a category, and it's broken into 3 sections. One is called P&N, and that stands for pressing and necessary. I would call it your top 5. I'm coaching a group right now in Houston, and every time we get on a call, I say, okay, well, what are your top 5 for this week? And they have already made a list of the top 5 things they need to get done this week. And by making that top 5 priorities, they're able to get focused on what matters. What are the top 5 things you need to get done this week? Write that down in that first area on the left-hand side. Then we go down to primary responsibilities. So in your role and in your function, in your business, what are your primary responsibilities? Are you need to be a visionary? Is sales, setting appointments, managing a team? What is it? Putting out proposals, working the books? What are your primary responsibilities? You need to write that down. For Olga was in sales, and her primary responsibility was lead generation. She had to find people who were looking to have conversion, translation conversion. That's the company that she worked for. And so she had to do lead generation. And then she had to book meetings, book appointments, and then close those sales. And then follow up on those customers. So her primary responsibilities became very clear. And then there are secondary responsibilities. These just mean that they're not your primary. It could be they support your primary. It could be research. It could be follow-up. It could be administrative. It could be returning phone calls, maybe email. But the point is, you need to identify what are your secondary responsibilities. Now, the next phase is to go through each one of those things on the list and make an appointment with them on your calendar. It could be that you do those on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or it could be Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. You just need to figure out a time on your calendar and make an appointment with yourself. You're going to do that week after week after week after week after week. Oh, it's never going to end, because this is how the Change Energizer manages his time. You make an appointment with yourself or with your priorities every week. And pretty quickly, you develop a routine. You develop a system of doing the things that matter most repeatedly at a certain time. Before long, it turns into a memory muscle, and you do it automatically. Now it's subconscious. Now it's a part of who you are and the way you operate. It's what you're all about. This is called commanding your weekly routine. And it is the success habit of the most successful people in the world, who are doing their priorities on a weekly, repeatable basis. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take out that worksheet and just list, what are my top 5? And then, what are my primary responsibilities? Next, what are my secondary responsibilities? List those and make an appointment with yourself. Plan your work, and now work your plan. Hey, this is Scott Carley. I'm the Change Energizer, and I'm helping to energize change in your weekly routine. So I want you to act on it, and I want to hear from you. Send me a good report at scott@scottcarley.com, and let's spread the good news about how you have changed your weekly routine.